I'd like to call to order the May 14th regular meeting of the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners. If you would, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. For a moment of silence. Take a moment to reflect on the tragic events that have occurred since our last meeting. Thank you. Clerk Schuler, I'm not aware of any additional amendments. I'm not aware of any amendments to the agenda.
No.
Does anybody have any? If not, I'll take a motion, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have nobody signed up for public comments. And I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This time, Manager Ferguson, you'd like to introduce our newest employee.
So it's my honor to introduce Jeff Wells. Jeff joins us from Mills River, North Carolina, where he served as the town manager for about 4.5 years, but his majority of his career has been in planning, in the planning field, and he's been in several localities in North Carolina, served the town of Archdale, or the city of Archdale, and also Kannapolis and some other areas in North Carolina. So we're happy to have Jeff join the staff, and he's been with you as a board a couple times in a budget work session format, but this is his first official board meeting. So welcome, Jeff.
Welcome, Jeff. Do you want to make any commitments at this point in time? You don't have to. Just kidding. Thank you. All right, next up, 2019 Waxhaw 101 completion ceremony.
Right, welcome. So we have gone through another year of Waxhaw 101, our second year, and we had a wonderful group this year, much like last year's class. Just a joy, and staff had fun, and we hope that all the participants had fun. So we just wanted to show our appreciation to everybody's dedication for attending the 8-week course. So let's start somewhere here yet. Let's start George McGuff. Joseph Garcia. Amy Lasasso. Sarah, I don't want to murder your last name. Say it for me, Sarah. Thank you. See, it's not even that hard. I'd have probably got it. Pedro More. And then I think the only other graduate we have with us this evening is Miss Gladys.
added extra, we thought we would ask Gladys to give a few words for the graduating class.
The Waxhaw 101 class of 2019, 15 graduates are honored to be here this evening. We wish to express appreciation to our fearless and competent leader, Kelly Curry. Mr. Mayor, commissioners, other elected officials, and all paid employees of the town of Waxhaw, our deepest appreciation for being our teachers and our mentors. Our classes were well planned, presented professionally, and were varied with emphasis on each facet of our town government. We learned, we made new friends, and we now are ready to preserve our past, enhance our present, and dream big for the future. Please do continue to offer this class. What an honor and a privilege to represent this auspicious group. Waxhaw 101 2019. Each class member has a unique story and a list of talents to admire. From the land of the Waxhaws, home of the Waxhaw Indians, later settlers from Europe seeking freedom to work and worship, came. Then the incorporation of our town in 1889, the railroad, cotton farmers, the Rodmans, Nivens, Masseys, McElwains, McWhirters, Howies, Davis, Collins, Nisbets, McCain, Walkups, and Gambles, each family offering special ideas and values in building Waxhaw. And now, view the result. My classmates told me they enjoyed the friendly feeling, the opportunity for family involvement, and the feeling of security found in our town. Our forebears did a good job. How can you not rejoice to hear these words that were printed in the Inquirer Journal on April 27th, 2019? The National Main Street Center designated Waxhaw and Monroe as 2 of 46 communities in North Carolina accredited Main Street America winners. To win, you must demonstrate exemplary commitment to preservation based upon economic development and community revitalization through the Main Street approach. Downtown is vibrant and attracts investment and creates jobs. Our incubator program surely counts assisting persons to establish business, be it in the arts, economics, or technology. Our parks and events for families and seniors are not to be matched. If only you could have experienced the glory and history of our outdoor drama, Listen and Remember, written by a local history teacher, original music composed by a local musician, but inspired by a native who had the vision and dream to tell our story. Hands over your hearts, please, as I read words to just one of these songs. America, land of the free, may you always be a haven of hope for all men. This is the song of the numberless throng who labored and died that their dreams would not end. We pray that we may also be a torch for her freedom held high. What can we give that she may live? We offer the best we have. God grant that she may ever be land of the free. In 1989, the centennial year for Waxhaw, we offered a prize for the best original musical composition honoring our town. Krista Russell, a Wingate University student, was the winner. This is her song, Tribute to Waxhaw. There's a town in North Carolina nestled on the Piedmont Plain. It's not a famous town by far, no glitter, no glamour or fame. Founded in 1889 high upon a rocky ridge, it draws its name from an old settlement where Andrew Jackson lived. The 12-Mile Creek was a boundary line for the early homes built there. Old steam engine ran the mill where men lumbered the pines. The families lived on old dirt roads, scattered and winding rough. But where those old dirt roads came to meet, the town of Waxhaw was born. Waxhaw has come a long way since then, but they still grow corn and cotton. The railroad train still runs through town. Just hear the whistle blow. From a town of a few pioneers to a growing town with strong family ties, Waxhaw, your growth and your strong heritage make us proud to call you home. From 5 privately owned grocery stores, 4 gas stations, a small hamburger joint, 3 churches, 1 school, a bank, a post office, a mayor, 1 clerk, a night watchman, outhouses pumping water from the well, horses, mules, and wagons, 2 cotton gins, 3 cotton buyers, a depot with a cotton platform, 1 doctor, a drugstore. What do you witness today? People stayed, people left. New folks arrived. The mill closed. The cotton gin burned. Antique shops replaced the grocery stores. Homes were sold. Homes were built. The McDonald Hotel became a private residence. The old drugstore became a bicycle shop. We no longer have a movie theater, but we have fine dining, excellent art shows, outstanding musical presentations, a good elementary school, a public library, parades which go unmatched, and celebrations at the drop of a hat. Today, a mayor, 5 commissioners, more than 30 people in the police department, I think, and perhaps more than 70 paid employees. Waxhaw is a place to be. The very house in which I was born is still standing just down the street from the Waxhaw Library. You can still walk over the overhead bridge, but we now have a swinging bridge. You can no longer buy a train ticket in Waxhaw to travel to Atlanta, as I was allowed to do with my piano teacher and about 25 other young people in the 40s. Some things never changed, though. Hand-cranked ice cream on Sunday afternoon, a visit to Granny's to rock on her porch, Sunday school, Bible school, ball games, square dances, lending a helping hand. This happens in Waxhaw. But recall now our heritage, glorious and grand. Long ago in a virgin forest lived an ancient Indian tribe. There cradled 'neath red hillside, clear flowing streams. Then one day in the land of the Waxhaws, they welcomed a friend, the white man, who sought the paradise of all men's dreams. As the evening star in the heaven appears, let our thoughts go back over the many years. See and hear all those who came before us. Voices echo now, their visions glorious. Waxhaw, our home, our place, our purpose. Hold on to our past. Share the stories. Enjoy the beauty of each day. Never stop dreaming dreams for our future. And thank you for this time. I love you all.
I don't know how we surpass that, but we will continue with the meeting here. Up Now, I would like to move to, this is a special week across the country, and I would be happy to entertain a motion to adopt a proclamation for National Police Week 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Proclamation, National Police Week 2019. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it fell, National Law Enforcement Week, to pay special attention to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Waxhaw Police Department, and whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. And whereas National Police Week will be observed this year from May 12th through May 18th, and whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 31st annual Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13th, 2019, and whereas the 38th Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service will take place at 11 a.m. on May 15th on the west front of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., and whereas all citizens of Waxhaw should remember and recognize the men and women who serve and protect them, and keep in mind that there are law enforcement officers working in the town every hour of every day to ensure they remain safe. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Town of Waxhaw Board of Commissioners formally designates May 12th to 18th, 2019 as National Police Week in the Town of Waxhaw, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation, adopted this 14th day of May, 2019. Chief? Okay, on to old business. Draft Park Master Plan, continued discussion. Ms. Dina Sabinski.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okie dokie. I don't have any slides, but in front of you, you have a updated table of contents, an updated executive summary, and a map. I would like to go through the updated documents and then ask for any additional questions or concerns that y'all might have at this time. If you have your previous master plan, that would be awesome to bring that out. I do have some extra copies if you don't have it. I also have some extra copies of our the workshop that we did, the extra notes from each of you. I've got those too. Okay. And also I have extra copies of I've got 2 extra copies of the appendixes, if you'd like to look through those as well. As you can see, it's a small tree, so that's the reason why we only printed 2. But we do have them here for your convenience. At the last meeting, you were presented with some copies of the appendices that you didn't previously see, so you would have those for your viewing pleasure. Very good? Okay. Alrighty, so we're going to start off with our tables of contents. As you'll see, at request at the last meeting that the train example was taken off per council request, and the last appendices was just moved up to that placement, so that way we didn't have to change the order of the alphabet. So that's the only change on that page. With the executive summary, you will see, if you go to your original plan, EX4 is our first page. The copies in front of you have it in red. I know that the copies were sent out earlier, I think on Friday, so y'all could have that as well over the weekend of the first two documents, but I'm not sure if you got the map or not, so the map is there as well, okay? So in red, you'll see there's just a clarification about the acreage, and then what we are projecting is needed in 19 and then also in 28. So just a clarification right there. The next is as requested on your first page, and then the second.
Is it safe to assume that that translates into, what is it, 357, the various park classifications?
Yeah,
That's
so
the
it
sum
trickles,
total of that.
everything trickles down.
Yeah, okay.
So this is kind of like your
That's the
introduction.
summary of that
but yeah,
page. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Thanks. So the next page is also EX5. And then at the end of that page, as requested in red, on your first page, it talks about where the classification came with the survey. So when we talk about how that community connection happens, that just basically gives you a little more clarification on what the facilities and programs were high on the survey list. Okay, and I know that was important from our last meeting. Okay, we're moving on. There wasn't, that was the only, your page 2. Then we're moving to page 3. There wasn't any changes except for some grammatical changes. Your page 4 is in the book. Page 7, EX7. Okay. The title for the 3 to 5 year priority projects went to recommendation. So it basically, it gives you more of a broader scope of what that that section's trying to tell you. Okay. And we're moving on. We're still on EX7. We go over with the title change. It goes over the infrastructure of the park system, and then also goes into the discussion and public input for the next couple pages for the that describes on each park. Any questions so far? Okay. EX 8. Next one. We have some clarification on the Nesbitt soccer fields, the skate park, and the community corner. So in the individual location, we basically updated to help modify what y'all requested the last meeting. Also, the Nesbit was a request from PCR committee with the classification from a soccer field to more of a multi-purpose field because we have so many mini fields, and it doesn't really have, doesn't play into the national standards when it comes to soccer fields. So we just made that clarification. Any questions so far? Okay, we're moving on to EX9 in our book. And this is page 7 in your handout. You'll see that big paragraph in red at the end. So in your handout, it's the last page. And that's totally added on to the EX9 page. So where you see the artwork at the skate park, it's going to be added right above that. Okay. This was also a request at our last meeting. Mr. John was talking about different ways of the vision of our master plan, and then also we talked about the funding strategy for that as well. And then the understanding that this document is a recommendation. I know that was a concern as well. And then it also gives us, it helps us set up for the next 5 to 10 years. And then the future, how we plan, this is kind of like our starting off point, and tells us our needs assessment, and then we move on to our CIP that I know we're all excited to get to. Is there any questions about that, the last big red area in the back? Okay.
I'll offer a comment, and I can give you these later.
Okay.
I went and reviewed, when we move from draft to adoption, it moves from recommendation to a guide. I mean, basically, it's a plan at that point. One of the things that I think we should put in here is verbiage along the lines of that it's intended to serve as a guide and should be reviewed periodically. My recommendation would be annually, but put that as a guidepost for all current and future boards and staff to bring it back and look at it and make sure it's still consistent with the needs of the town, the funding capability of the town, and all that. I just think that's as we adopt it, we have to put something like that in there and hold ourselves collectively accountable. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
I can give you that. I mean, I wrote them down.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? We can move on to the map. The map basically reflects everything that is in your executive summary. We, again, took notes from our last meeting and reflected that certain things that y'all wanted to be taken out. So, for example, Town Creek, the creek landing area was taken out. And then the wording for the skate park was updated. Again, I told you about the Nesbit with the soccer fields was updated as well. Is there any concerns that y'all see now with our new map?
Is there a reason the YMCA is in a color that isn't on the legend? I tend to be visual, and I looked legend yellow, and there was nothing over there. And then my eyesight fails me. I can't make out YMCA over there.
It's okay, it's in the white part.
Yeah, but it points, there's an arrow pointing over to that yellow. That's why I was referring to.
That's where the Y is going to be.
But it's not in the legend is all
Oh, in the legend, okay,
that's what I'm saying.
got it.
For those of us that can't make
call.
out some of the small letters on a map this concise, I mean, it's
I've got my
it's a very heavy
binoculars
map.
on. I got you.
The Waxhaw Marvin Road site, it says develop first 2 phases of a new park, and then under recommended priority projects, it says phase 1 development, so the wording maybe doesn't match up.
Okay. Thank you.
Keep going.
Okay.
You're good.
So that's basically my presentation, because that was the main concerns that y'all had at the last meeting. As I said, the executive summary trickles down to the rest of the document, and we can have at our next meeting, or whenever y'all choose to want to bring it back. If you don't have, I'm looking to see if you have any other questions or concerns that we need to relook at, or,
The only question I have, I know that you took out on the Town Creek Park, what you call a
Creek-
launch.
the creek landing.
or- And I know there was concerns over liability for that. Was there ever any, were you able to check into, I mean, is that something we would be liable for? If you were talking about us just building like a pier
launch,
type
it'd be a
of
launch, like a
thing?
launch
Right,
off
so-
area. So it would be something we would have to add to our insurance. Again, that was something that was kind of been on the list for a while. And I didn't have any pushback to not have it on the list, but that's totally cool that it's not on the list anymore, but not to my knowledge of what you're
Yeah,
thinking
so
of.
let me help, because I sit on the liability insurance pool.
Okay.
Anytime we add property to any municipality adds property to their insurance coverage, the league now is in a is coming out and investigating the property to make sure that there's no additional premium and coverage needed, as well as what the liability is. We've actually demanded that because of increased claims from that side. So that is really what will happen. So responsibilities on us to bring it to the insurance carrier, and then the insurance carrier, the league, will do a risk assessment.
So when the 34-acre park is open, when the pond is on there, would we have that same type of liability?
You would go through the same process, but Manager Ferguson and Director Sabinski actually had them come out last year to look at the property to make sure it's on, and what is our risk at this point in time. I'm pretty sure. They came back. So anytime they look at property, Greg and Dina, for that matter, Todd or anybody, takes the property to the insurance carrier.
I think that would be my only thought that would need some continual discussion regarding the launch, because I don't see much of a difference between having that body of waters compared to the pond on the 34 acres. So if we're going to do one, why we wouldn't allow the
Well,
other? So
I can't speak for Dina, but this is a master plan of the whole system, correct?
It is.
And then as you get to the specific park, you will come up with a master, a mini
each-
master plan
for each
for that,
park.
each individual park, which would have to go through a risk assessment. So I'll turn it over to Greg for that.
Yeah, and I think since the issue has been around for a while, we've taken a very specific look at it, and due to the amount of debris that's routinely in the creek, we have reached out to some of the federal agencies to look at, particularly Matt has, at how that should be addressed. And so with recent flooding and different events that have occurred, there's a lot of debris that either ends up in the creek or ends up in the creek for a while. And so I think we would concur that there's not an adequate way to plan for that right now, and there's an ongoing dialogue that's happening about debris. And so there's not a plan, or hadn't been a plan to really do anything in the short term, so removing it from this master plan doesn't cause us any concern. If at another point in the future there's an effort to deal with debris and flooding, then maybe it gets revisited, but right now there's not really a good way to address that.
And thus hey, on an annual basis, we'll take a look at this and see where we are kind of thing. 'Cause that's the safest way for the town and for our financial plan. Any other questions? Do you have others? Mayor Pro Tem McMillan? Commissioner Burns? Commissioner Lee? I think, I mean, we could adopt it, and then it's an aggressive plan, and we'd sit here and scratch our head, how are we going to be able to afford it, et cetera. So I think, for me personally, I would welcome your rough estimate as to how best to sequence these. The need's there. I mean, but the affordability model is also a challenge. And there's two things, looking both at the capital side of it, but you're also looking at the operational expense over 10 years. I kind of categorize things into increased quantity, and the one that concerns me is the impact. It's the number one need, trails, sidewalks. But I also know from living in Prescott, trails and sidewalks, when they're opened up, creates challenges in terms of safety, what's going on back there, lighting and all that kind of stuff. And so what the impact of that is, all for walkability, but make sure we have a good gauge as to what we're really getting into. That would be one. The other thing that I noticed in a couple of other parks and rec master plans that I compared to, one way to maximize fields is to change the mindset around turf and lights and all that stuff. And I didn't see that as well represented in here. Is it in here? I mean, so in other words, lighting the Waxhaw athletic fields next to the Y, or whatever other fields. Is that captured in here? I just didn't catch it with the tree that you gave us.
With the new fields for the partnership with the Y, that's already included.
Okay.
So when we bring on a new park, the infrastructure is going to be there from the beginning.
Okay.
We're right at this moment in time, because the department is still really, really new, that we're playing catch up on some of the infrastructure that we have at our current parks. And that's something that I would advocate first. And I'm working with finance as well to kind of help with that prioritization.
So maybe the better way to ask and then confirm your intent in any park master plan that you build would be to get it done completely first time versus the 9-year project we're on, or 8-year project we're on.
It's all
with-
about your
with Nesbitt.
phasing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
if you phase, from my previous employment, how we phase the park in is how you can do the infrastructure without overstepping to come back and mess it all up to finish the rest of it out. So you set that up ahead of time, so your power, your lights, all of those elementary things are happening in the front end, and then you get your pretty shiny pennies closer to the back end. It's not glamorous, but it gets your infrastructure in properly.
Nobody's ever accused me of worrying about glamour, but that's okay. So, did you have a question?
So with the phasing in, to just reiterate what the mayor has said, it would be helpful for you to identify, the specific areas that you're talking about as far as developing or approximate cost to something with the parks, that are currently open and their needs, and moving forward, the phasing in as to how you would then phase in all the other parks with the cost, throughout this plan. So,
I actually started working on it.
okay.
In the appendix on the partnership part of it, I think it would be helpful. I think what's written there is very, very good. I think it would be helpful to capture our existing relationships in their current state and what's the master plan element around those as well, because they currently one plays a very vital role. Another one could be hopefully playing a very vital role, and I think we need to, for completeness sake, include that.
Well, will we be doing existing as well as potential?
How I'd set it up would do the infrastructure of our current open parks, and then move forward to what y'all would like to do next, and give you those options.
Okay, with the potential partnerships as well. Do you have additional ideas as far as partnering or, other partnerships that we may be able to look at or think about with regard to the opening or working with on some of these parks?
So I would want to start that partnership conversation with our school system. I think that would be a great way to help with our indoor space as well, and some of their outdoor facilities that link up to ours. Track is really big here. Some of those linkage would be very helpful for them, but also to start that conversation, especially with our South Providence School. I think it would be a great way to start linking that partnership up. We've already started doing with some of our churches, to possibly having some program space in there and some event space. Are you looking for more like the school district, or what we have like with the WA and with the YMCA,
Whatever is going to potentially assist us in moving forward with the development and growth and continuation.
So here's a different way to look at it. So you've got a list of both parks and amenities that, the wish list on one page, or I tried to put it on one page. Partnership with Union County Public Schools has the potential to address field issues. So, capture that in whatever words, highlight that, because then that talks to how we're going to offset some of the growth aspects that you've got in terms of softball fields, football, soccer, the potential for lacrosse. Does WAA do that, or whatever? I'm not telling you how to write it, but that gets to that. The YMCA partnership begins to address the aquatic need, could begin to address the aquatic need. Will it? Do we drive for it? I mean, again, but that's a major, major expense that if we partner with the Y, that's not an expense that necessarily we have to cover. We may have to ask for membership relief or whatever, so it expands. But, those are all things that you and Greg would need to work through with that partnership. I think what the Mayor Pro Tem is getting at, we have partnership potential that addresses the big animal items in there. Let's just call that out as to, because that's part of your master plan, your work plan. You're working on that. That's good, and the community needs to know that, because they can also help support us as we're having those conversations. That's the concept, I think.
Okay. It would be really helpful too, because I know that y'all go to like the state capitol and y'all are in different meetings and things like that, where if you also hear of any possible partnerships and then, go with me to go to them, that would be awesome as well, because y'all's voice is heard, and it might take me a little bit longer to get to the table. If y'all are with us, that would help us get that moving faster.
Okay? Now, we'll give you a to-do, because we always pass it back. If you have a list of people that you would like to have on that partnership list that you would like us to try to go open the door, by all means, give us the list and we'll go work on your behalf.
Okay.
Okay? Or we'll assign work to somebody to go with. No, seriously, you're absolutely right. We can, good example, the Y and Union County Public Schools are trying to work out something. Gosh, wouldn't it be great if all three are talking,
Mm-hmm.
That's just
That
a
would be
natural
awesome.
thing that they work on in the community, so. Other questions, comments?
Okay, so my question is, what would you like to see done next? Or what would you like to have us provide or bring back?
So we'll go around, but I think one of the things that's very difficult for me, and I'll put it on me, I read ahead of time, and I read these things a couple of times, and then when I get something the night of, I'm struggling with where it fits.
Okay.
So before you come back, it would be great to have one. I don't need the appendices. I mean, there's plenty there.
Okay.
Unless it change, the partnership one will
Yep.
change. But give us a complete document so we can actually do one final
Review.
look-see review, and we'd be happy, I think, to do a work session to say, hey, think it's complete, or you might tweak this little part of it, but I think that's a logical next step, because you've made a lot of good changes. You've listened. We've had good work sessions. Now let's digest it and force us to work a little bit more on it, okay? Because right now I got 2 versions and 3 tables of contents, and I'm trying to put it together,
No worries.
okay? That's not criticism. This is the dynamic nature of trying to pull a master plan together.
Well, our thought process is to try to get as much, get back to you as soon as possible, so
Yep.
you can have as much information for us to move forward. So
Now,
I'm good.
I'm also going to ask you this question, because in there it talks about alignment with planning. Have you given Jeff in his first 2 weeks a chance to review it and provide his input?
We want Jeff to keep smiling.
Okay,
So,
so
no, sir, I have not met with Jeff yet.
That
you might want to give it to him like
That
the
might be
Thursday
helpful.
before Memorial Weekend and ask
Yeah.
him, keep himself busy or something like that. I think it'd be good for him to take a look at it. And
Oh,
just-
yes, sir.
He's a fresh set of eyes. He's got a park and rec background from where he comes from. And certainly the planning aspect of it, I think would be great. And he still has a smile, Dina, right now, so.
We want to keep it that way.
Do you have anything to add? Is that legit?
Just
Okay.
basically what we've already
Okay.
said and identified as some concerns, questions, or that you've taken note of.
Okay.
Come back.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. New business. Bank services vendor. Tammy Holland, our Assistant Finance Director. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Is this close enough? I'm too short.
Okay, you must be working hard if you think 7:20 in the evening is the afternoon. Now,
It's
I mean,
been
it
a
must be
long
budget
day.
season. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the finance department, looking at increasing efficiency and saving the town money, we started looking at our services, and banking services was one of those. The town currently has its banking services with BB&T. That includes a lockbox where tax payments are mailed. That's about 9,000 payments a year, or $6 million that gets processed through there. Those payments are processed by BB&T, but the staff has to manually enter those payments into our financial system. We also process about 5,000 checks and 40,000 deposits yearly. These are also manually cleared within our system each month in order to complete the bank reconciliation. The staff uses a large amount of time in manual entry, and there could be data entry errors in keying this information in and clearing it through the system. We are not able to pull some simple reports that we need for auditing purposes, like outstanding checks. We can't balance what the bank has to what our system has currently. We don't get a report on voided checks. We do not have any filters for ACH, where it notifies us if someone's taking money from the account. We don't get notification, and we're not able to approve that before it's processed through the bank currently. These were all factors and services that we would like to have, and that's what we were looking at when we went out and requested proposals. In March, I contacted several of the larger banks and requested that they send me the proposals. We heard back from two banks, Bank of America and Wells Fargo. I did reach out to SunTrust, which is now the owner of BB&T. They did not provide a quote. After reviewing all of the fees, I put them all into a spreadsheet, compared everything across the board. Wells Fargo offered the greatest return on investment and a stronger ability to grow and have greater internal controls with all of our products. And that was at an approximate savings of $3,000 a year to what we're currently paying. Along with that, our client service manager is for Wells Fargo would be based in Waxhaw. He lives here. Pete, I'll butcher his last name, Squillia. He would be put in as our service manager. And so I think any situation that came up, we could get resolved quickly. We like the staff at the BB&T Bank here, but we mostly deal with the corporate office. And sometimes it is hard to get them to respond, and it takes repeated calls over and over, which is rough. And especially when you're dealing with financial services, you want it taken care of immediately, pretty much. But given all of that information, the finance department recommends that the board approve Wells Fargo as a new central depository for the town of Waxhaw.
And assuming we approve, it would take effect with the fiscal year, or are you going to do it immediately?
Immediately.
Okay. All right. Questions from anybody on the board? Okay. If not, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to designate Wells Fargo as the official depository for the town of Waxhaw in accordance with state statute, and approve the proposal for the bank services for a term of 3 years, and authorize the town manager, Mr. Ferguson, to enter into a contract for banking services with Wells Fargo.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing the work. That's great savings. We have nobody signed up for general public comments. Leadership reports. Greg?
We got a couple tonight, and we've got, I know at least one loaded up, so if Matt can advance that, I'll get the clicker. Matt Hubert's also going to share a couple things, but this is, we have a big event coming up this weekend, so one thing that we want to do is explain how a new event works. And so if the public is able to attend on Saturday, we want to really talk about something that's new this year. And the Kaleidoscope Fest is a different flavor this year, and it's focused on food, but we also have the arts and craft focus as well. So you'll see it's titled a Music, Food, and Arts Festival. And so we're going to just go through briefly what that means. It's 10 to 5 Saturday, and a large number of vendors there. But how does the event work? There's ability to sample food and to go around to different businesses that provide food in the downtown. And you do that through a token system. So there's tokens that you can buy, and an item at a food vendor will cost so many tokens, and they'll have that posted. So there'll be an area for token purchase. And so as you see, most items are 2 to 4 tokens. You can use cash or credit card. So we'll have 2 or 3 vending sites where you can purchase the coins and then go around downtown. This is the lineup for the day, just as a sample of kind of what happens there. But a lot of things happening between 10 and 5, a lot of activity from partners that'll be downtown. You see on the left-hand side there just some of the different acts and events that'll be on stage or doing things, performing. So a lot of festivities, a lot of food, a lot of art. There are a number of sponsors that have helped this year, and so you'll see the logos of many of those up on the screen. And so we're able to do a big event like this because we do have partnerships. We have a lot of volunteers that are going to be participating Saturday. We still, I believe, need a few more volunteers if people sign up Genius. Call Parks and Recreation if you don't have access to Sign Up Genius, but we have the ability to take a few more volunteers as well. The second thing, I think Matt's going to take the lead on and kind of going through talking about a couple of the capital projects that have transportation components. And we do have a handout as well that's coming around that gives it's a financial update, but it's also the projects that Matt's going to talk about. So he's going to go through kind of where some of them stand, but this is a list that has all of our current capital projects that are in process, and one that has a to-be-determined adopted budget is the Waxhaw Fields, which is associated with the YMCA. And so as that project moves closer to bid and we get some tighter numbers there, the board at a point in time will be requested to look at approving a capital project ordinance for that budget amount. So you'll see that particular line has a TBD. There's been some funds expended previously, but once we get closer to construction, that slot would be filled in. But these are the capital projects that have been started in previous years or earlier in this year, and Matt's going to go through some of the transportation-related ones.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, it's kind of relevant in the context of the budget workshops we've been having, and just coincidentally, the reason a lot of this information hasn't been brought up previously is that there just wasn't a lot of movement to account for. But we do have a lot of good information to put out for you and the public as well on these projects that again are separate from the operational budget. So first is the Kensington intersection project at NC-16, and that when we got approved for federal funding, that became EB 5950, and that didn't happen until March 7th when that was officially adopted by the State Board of Transportation. So after that agreement was finalized, that the plans had already been at 70%, what has to happen is the environmental document has to get completely redone to align with the guidelines from federal funding for that. And so that sets the project back on a whole new timeline. We expect to finish that in November and be able to then proceed to right-of-way. Concurrent with that, we've got information that there are 2 water mains that are likely going to need to be relocated, and that puts an additional cost of almost $400,000 into the project. And one, we've got to follow up with a more defined survey where we're taking as-built information from the initial planning, and now we've got to kind of really verify, is that accurate? While we're doing that, we've also submitted another request for additional funds because funds have become available. So the agreement was made in March, and by April 8th, we put in a request for additional funds from the CRTPO in light of this information, and we expect to have that information back hopefully in June.
Discretionary funds, new project, or to this project?
To this project.
Okay.
Right. And so that's where it stands right now for Kensington. Are there any questions on that one? Okay. So second is the TAP grant. We are at 90% plans at this point. Still engaging CSX to get the right-of-way. That's a very long and deliberate process. We have to do additional surveying and create the exhibits before we can actually negotiate the fee they expect for that right-of-way. And we're in process with that as well. The plaza design is complete, and we expect probably in the next few weeks to put out a public notice where we're going to mock it up and allow you and the business owners and the public to kind of participate in what that is projected to do in that block, so that we can all understand at design phase what the deliverable is going to be, and be clear on our expectations, so we don't get a surprise at construction. And that's pretty exciting, because I think it's going to answer a lot of questions and provide a lot of positive buzz for that block. And then finally, the Waxhaw Marvin sidewalk. We still have one entity to negotiate the right-of-way with. We expect that to happen in the next week or so. And then the bid documents are already ready. As soon as right-of-way, we will be able to finalize, review, bring forward the plan and the bid documents and put that out for construction bid. And those are, that's a summary of those.
Questions for Matt?
I have a question.
Commissioner Burns?
On the TAP grant, so the grant is $500,000, right? 500,000?
Correct.
And then our matching, so this is 179,000 over. What makes up that 179,000?
Yeah, the original terms of the grant did not incorporate right-of-way.
Okay, so that's what you're thinking that's going to
Oh,
cost,
it
or is that an estimate, or is that?
Some of it's an estimate, some of it are sunk costs in an additional survey and in the actual right-of-way agents we have to engage. So those costs are already encumbered and in process. The final piece is what the actual negotiating line item for the fee.
CSX.
Right.
So will that be an addition? Will that be extra, will add to this?
I'll have to get with Kurt really to define whether that's in this number or is that an additional number. We still expect to be within budget in the overall scheme, because the construction costs were well under so far, at least at the 90% review.
Okay. Because it seems like last time we went over this with Kurt, it wasn't almost $200,000 more than the original.
Sure. And
grant
certainly
and
we can
match.
detail that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can address that actual question. I think there's the street lighting in there as well. If you recall, that was a separate item at one time. If you go to page 1 of 3 of, probably going to be about the 4th attachment. Actually, the 5th page back. So at the top, it's got budget versus actual, and then it shows the second line down, transfer in from capital projects for downtown, $150,000. 150 of that is lighting cost,
The new lights that are going in at the same time, yeah.
which never really was part of the TAP grant,
Right.
but was to be coordinated and included, and so it's actually budgeted as part of that, so it can be installed at the same time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any additional, Greg?
That was the last item.
Okay. Leadership reports continuing with the board. I'll go first. Two items that I want to report on. One, I've been asked a number of times what's going on with all the construction on the east side of Waxhaw. And given that we have had a very robust discussion about Park Rec Master Plan, that in and of itself is a great discussion point of the importance of master planning. That's the Blythe Creek Sewer Enhancement. The first start of that project was back in 2006 when UCPS did their master plan and showed that they were going to have a capacity problem if they expanded schools. Union County updated their master plan in 2011. We did a comprehensive plan. They redid that plan in 2016 under the auspices of two predecessor managers at the county and the town level, and incorporated our master plan into yet a revised sewer enhancement master plan for Waxhaw in 2018, and then went out to bid, and that project is starting. That traversed, I think when I checked today, it traversed 5 different Board of County Commissioners. So there's a lot of steady hands that have been navigating that through, none the least of which, most recently, keeping it alive, were Mr. Simpson, Jerry Simpson, and Frank Akmus, along with Barb Harrison and Richard Helms. So, again, depending upon if you started 2006 or 2011, a long master plan shows the importance of capital CIPs and the need to put that kind of money out there and start planning for it. It's a $3 million project, and it is something that many people have had a hand in to bring it forward. The other thing I want to do is kind of key off of our valedictorian, Ms. Gladys Carr, and I want to read something to everybody. I got this today from Ralph Owen. He's one of the associate pastors up at Five Stones. And he sent me a note. He says, "Hey, hope you're doing well. My oldest daughter wrote a paper for school that shows the importance of community. Thought you would be encouraged by this." She did it for her college application. The value of community. Ask anyone where Waxhaw, North Carolina is, and most people will shrug their shoulders and move on with their lives. Waxhaw doesn't stand out like the roaring New York City's towering skyscrapers and bedazzled Times Square. In fact, the only flashing thing about it is the twinkling lights that light the streets during Christmas time. Waxhaw doesn't have a loud reputation of San Francisco's bustling crowds and traffic jams. Perhaps the only disturbance you'll find here is the occasional train that passes through in the middle of the night in the middle of the town. Waxhaw doesn't have the array of cuisines and music of New Orleans. However, the homemade treats at the creamery, lunch spots, hot spots provided by the local farmers, and live music on Saturday night seem to keep all 2,000 of us content. I'm glad she thinks the population is only 2,000. I think that's great. Growing up in a small town outside of the hustle and bustle of the city life has taught me one valuable lesson. Community matters. Parking across the street, I get out of the pickup and squeamishly walk over to the beaten-up shack a family just down the road calls home. Being the daughter of a pastor, hospital calls and volunteer events are no foreign concept. But something tells me this house visit is different. and just for context, this happened over Christmas time. Richard is a single father of 5 children, all who were recently dumped on his front step. He was unable to provide for his children, and with his ex-wife abandoning the scene, our mission is this: help Richard get his life back on track before DSS arrives. I'm not the first to show up. Several people make trips to nearby dumpsters with loads of broken toys, soiled clothes, and rotten food. The teachers of Richard's children load up the kids in their minivans with the intention that this task is bound to take all night. Door propped ajar, I stick my head into the house and my stomach curls at the sight of the amount of waste that lines the floor. Dirty bare mattresses lay on the scattered trash, and unsanitary living conditions are astounding. I must have passed by this house hundreds of times. How could I have not known this was in our community? Throughout the evening and into the night, the town of Waxhaw rallies together to show Richard that he is a part of a much bigger family. Police officers help with the cleanup. Neighbors donate new house appliances and necessities. Strangers come to give the walls a fresh coat of paint. And members from our church and others bring meals. People of every race and age come eager to help in any way they can. Richard paces in awe as people he has never met before come alongside him to not only contribute to the improvement of his lifestyle, but also to walk with him and let him know that he's not alone in Waxhaw. This is what real life, real love looks like. By the next morning, DSS allows Richard to keep custody of his kids because of the drastic project that was made overnight. While my heart was wrecked after seeing a teary-eyed father realize that he needed help beyond what he could provide, but Richard was truly longing for something which we all secretly starve for as well. If the citizens of Waxhaw had not come together to help Richard's broken family situation, his life, the life of his children, would be drastically different than it is today. Now Richard and his children have their house back and continue to receive meal help from those who desire to see his family reconciled and healed. I learned that anyone can benefit from social connectedness when they realize that every person lives a unique and unpredictable life. I learned that anyone can benefit from the help of others when they're willing to be vulnerable and listen to the vulnerable. I learned that anyone can benefit from reaching out to neighbors and allowing neighbors to reach out to them. I have learned that these things define community, define Waxhaw. That was written by a 17-year-old senior in high school, one Miss Laura Owen. So, So nice to meet you. Okay, we'll go around. Commissioner Burns? Commissioner Lee?
Could I top that?
Commissioner Westlake? All right, then. With that, I will entertain a motion to, just as a precursor to this, we are going to go into closed session for personnel matters, and we are done with the business portion of the meeting. We have nothing to bring back. We'll have nothing to bring back to report to the public. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel-related matters pursuant to state statute, and invite Manager Ferguson and Interim Attorney Buckley to join us.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.